Yeah, they're terrible. The Browns are just they're so bad.
Well, they're missing offense, defense, special teams. I think they had replacement players. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, there he is. Hey, John.
Yeah, we don't waste time on the show. We started the show right out of the chute. I do hope that you subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss one of these shows. I'm going to be doing a lot of shorts as well. There will be shorts from this show with Rudy and Bo Crouch, of course. But let's get right to it. And we're going to talk about the game tonight. There's going to be weather issues. And whenever it's in a city named Cleveland, it's going to snow. I'm 90% sure it's going to snow, and I haven't even looked at the weather. It just usually happens. You get these lake effects, as they call it. So I think the game is going to be possibly hit by it. I already pre-bet the under at 37. I haven't checked it in the last 2 hours, actually, but I can't imagine it going up. And unders of 37 or less are hitting at 70% over the last 5 seasons. So that trend's going to change. I mean, they may score 60 tonight. Who knows? But I have I love the Steelers. I know Rudy likes them even better than I do as a team, as an organization. I mean, they've had as many coaches in the last 60 years as the Jets have had in 2. It's just incredible. But anyway, Pittsburgh Steelers offense ranked 19th overall, 8th in rushing, 28th in passing. And it's that rushing game that has really, really won them games. They take control of the clock. And then their defense is ranked 8th overall in DVOA, 4th against the run. That sets up play action pass, or not even play action pass. It forces the other team to pass the ball. 19th against the pass, 2nd in NFL scoring. But that 19th against the pass is a little bit misleading because what do teams have to do? And most of the time, the Steelers have the lead. So, of course, they want them to throw the ball and chew up time and keep the runner in bounds. Let's start with Rudy tonight, and then I'm going to show a pretty solid betting system on the under, and we'll take it from there.
Very, very good point, John, when you're talking about, look, batted passes aren't counted as a stat. So when you talk about batted passes, there were a lot last week as the Steelers took on the division rivals, and, of course, probably the closest rivalry within any AFC team, and those are the Baltimore Ravens. And one thing, I was on a podcast, like I am on many podcasts, but that specific one, we were talking about how, if you get Rashad Bateman in 3rd and short, he'll be able to expose the DBs or defensive backs, as most people call them. And that really wasn't the case in that game. It was defense for the Steelers, pressure in the secondary. Up front, they did a great job. They were able to, bat the ball down on multiple occasions. And it was almost as if Lamar Jackson of old was existent. And you've seen it on almost every single down. There were times and glimpses where he was able to get the ball down the field. But for the most part, the Steelers really encapsulated the cover 2. They went high, they went low, they went to dime look, dime packages, they went to the nickel. They just look so almost feverishly good in a fast-paced situation, which they faced against Baltimore. Now, with that being said, you're right. That line, as far as where the Steelers are at 105, I think that's a really good number. I'm not saying that it's a bad number. I think it's a really good number. Why? Because the Steelers can beat you in a variety of ways. We see them do it on special teams. We see them do it on defense with T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward. There were breakout games we've seen as Patrick Queen took it out against his old team, and that was his best game so far this season, was against his old team, who ultimately did not sign him and didn't even offer him a contract, even though he was the leading DB for that team last season. Now, with that being said, the Browns are absolutely horrible on the offensive side of the ball. They can't move the chains. They don't look very good in passing situations. And ergo, another starting quarterback, headed into 2025 in the NFL draft. And, of course, the Browns have like a sling it mentality. The problem is that they don't have a guy by the name of Ben Roethlisberger coming back. They don't have a Russell Wilson. They don't have the best 1-2 punch, not only in the AFC North, but in the AFC in regards to starting quarterback and backup quarterback comparisons. With that being said, there's a lot to like about the Steelers team. And when you were talking about mistakes, for the weather? No, it's a mistake by the lake, and that's exactly what the Cleveland Browns are currently against a very formidable 8-2 Steelers that could have very well a playoff position locked down a lot sooner than even before the Chargers, for that matter.
That's good stuff, Rudy. I really, really like what you're saying there. I think, with this underplay, it's a pretty simple bet to do. And I think I'm going to do 50% pre-flop. I usually do 70 or 65 and then look to add if the game starts out a little bit faster. And the danger is that you don't get that second piece on, but then that also implies that you're winning your bet. So I don't mind 65% or 70% of my normal bet size winning because I don't get the live bet on. Does that make sense? I guess it hopefully does. But the under has gone 16-9 for 64% winning bets in divisional games where a team has 6 or more losses than the foe. Obviously, Cleveland has 2 wins and Pittsburgh has 8. The foe is coming off a divisional win. Obviously, the Steelers are coming off a monster win, in which a game they might have, the Ravens are probably thinking they wish they had that one back. And the opponent is also an elite defense that is allowing fewer than 17 points per game, and that is elite. So that has gone 16-9 to the under, and I think I am going to play 50 or 60% pre-flop. I did 25% earlier this week, and I just scale in, just like I would scale in on a stock like NVIDIA or Apple or whatever my buy signal is. There's nobody holding a gun to your head telling you have to invest everything right now. Or you have to bet the game now. That's stupid. Just use the time of the week to your advantage. And sometimes the line will, you'll get 3, and then all of a sudden it'll go to 3.5, which is great if you're a dog. But sometimes you'll see it go from 3 to pick 'em. It's very hard to get the flows because news impacts these games just like news impacts the stock of Apple and IBM and whatever. So that is my undertake. Bo, what do you think for this game? Do you think weather is going to be a huge factor? And by the way, you guys are on the West Coast, and I hope you guys are remaining safe. And, the electric was out, I guess, said to 500,000 people. So hope everything's going well out there.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, cleanup is happening. We had, lots of trees down, stuff like that. So, I mean, it was a relatively quick storm that came through. So, a lot of property damage, but nothing too crazy. So fortunately, they're getting everybody back power. I was without power for a little while. Obviously, my signal is not quite the best, but we're making it happen. As far as this game, I mean, the Browns are bad. There's nothing they do particularly well. Obviously, their defense is solid, but the offense can't stay on the field. Special teams messes everything up. You feel bad for Stefanski because he potentially gets fired for something that's not even his fault. But it'll be interesting to see how this comes together. I think weather can play a factor, especially for 2 teams that struggle to move the ball anyway. I mean, it's not like the Steelers are putting up crazy points. They move the ball a little bit, and then they just rely on that kicker. Now, if you have their kicker in fantasy, you are killing it. Because he had 6 field goals last week. I think he had 5 the week before. So, I mean, if he's one of your fantasy players, you are loving the fact that the Steelers can't punch it in the end zone. But neither one of these teams score a lot of points. So I'm with you there. I take the under.
All righty. I guess we have 2 unders. And Rudy, what is your lean here initially on the show? It might be your best bet when we get to the end, but.
Well, now, take note, last game against Baltimore, the Steelers have historically stopped Derrick Henry right in his tracks, where other teams, he just runs all over them. And as the game goes on, he seems to get better. More carries, more yards per carry, and does a lot of damage. He's against the Steelers, he has 57 carries for 247 yards, but only 3 touchdowns in 4 games against Pittsburgh. So with that being said, I'm probably going to go with you guys on it, only because I just don't believe that despite how bad the Cleveland Browns are, they're going to be able to cover anything, and they certainly cannot cover wide receivers by the name of George Pickens. And so they're not going to be able to cover a thing. They may as well leave someone who's homeless without a blanket because they can't cover him either. So that's kind of where I stand on it as well. So I'm with you guys.
That sounds good. I will say this, and we can talk about it maybe at the end of the show. Preseason, I do this in the Circa Millions contest. I kind of stumbled upon it 3 years ago, 4 years ago. The Circa puts out betting lines for every single game, every single week for the entire season. This game opened with the Steelers as a 2.5-point road underdog and now has shifted because of their excellent play to 3.5 favorite. That's a move of 6 points. Anytime there has been a line move of 6 or more points, these suckers hit at going contrarian to that move, hit above 62% over that time period I mentioned. So is there any concern by either one of you that, maybe the Browns actually have a fighter's chance in this game? And if it is weather, maybe it helps them stay in the game?
No.
Just a non-factor.
No.
Analytics don't mean nothing. All right.
Yeah, I mean, so there's
ahead,
any
Bo.
given Sunday, right? Like, I mean, there's always the fighter chance, but I mean, at the same time, they've played such a bad brand of football. I have a hard time believing they can beat anybody. I mean, I think the Panthers could probably take them down at this point.
Well, the Browns are used to beating themselves. And when I say beating themselves in the sense of, the amount of reps that the starter gets, how the defense with Myles Garrett, despite his banter and how good they are and how they're going to take down, the Steelers and X, Y, and Z. It's just hyperbole. And so far this season, they haven't proved anything. I don't think they've even proved anything to themselves. So there's a lot of question marks for this Browns team headed into the latter part of the season. Steelers, on the other end, have a lot to win and a lot to contend with if they should get this win tonight on Thursday Night Football. Why? Because that puts them in a better position in the AFC North, a better playoff picture overall in the AFC, and secondly, that boosts their chances to lock up not just a wild card spot, but home field advantage. Now, with that being said, I know we know one team right now has a home field advantage, and those are the now beaten Kansas City Chiefs. Despite that one loss, they'll have home field advantage. The only way the Steelers will have it is if the Chiefs continue to fail and the Steelers continue to win. And so that could run right through Pittsburgh. And if it does, I feel sorry for any team that's going to come into the Steel City during the playoff season. Especially
in December. Absolutely. Good stuff, Rudy and Bo. Let's move on to another team here that, they're 8-2. Who have they beat? I keep saying that. Who have they beat? Their defense over the last 5 games is the best in the NFL. So it's not Jalen Hurts and the star wide receivers. It's the defense that has really risen to the occasion and stepped up their play and have gotten the job done. They're on a 6-game winning streak. The only other team that has a longer one are the Chiefs. Actually, that ended. So the Eagles do have the best win streak currently going. Win streaks in the NFL generally end, and I do think it's going to end here in Los Angeles with the Rams. So betting on a team coming off a non-conference game, the opponent is coming off 2 consecutive games against divisional rivals, and the total is 47.5 or more points, and that is important. It's not just a random number. 47.5 indicates that the game is expected to be higher scoring than the average NFL game. So that is an important stat. As you can see, 20-10, 67% winning bets, and that tells you to bet on the Rams as a 2.5-point underdog. So I'll turn this over to Rudy, and I am betting against the Eagles. Am I being foolish or wise?
There's a lot of things to like about this matchup. There's a lot of things to like about the Rams. Rams are getting healthy, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I'm kind of concerned with Matthew Stafford on the opposite side of that ball, only because he has thrown in interceptions in an untimely manner, whether he misreads the defense or secondary. And we spoke about this in the last show, and that he still has all those tools. He has all the weapons he needs in his toolbox in order to get these wins. The Rams themselves, they're definitely top 5 in defense, and they're getting healthier on the defensive side. So that actually increases their chances of getting in the backfield and snagging, Jalen Hurts. And interestingly enough, Jalen Hurts appeared on an injury report with an ankle. So there's certainly, if you're a Rams fan, certainly a lot to like. I would look at this as maybe betting the over on it if the money line is right. Otherwise, I'd probably stick with them at least to make the first score at SoFi, and the Eagles are trying to play catch up. So I think the Rams have a better opportunity in multiple phases throughout this game to get the win at SoFi over the Eagles.
I like it, Bo. Are you in agreement, or do you have something to counter this?
So it's funny because I think the Eagles are getting better as the season goes, and the Rams are just wildly inconsistent. So they have games where they come out and you're like, okay, this could be a playoff team. And then they come out and, have a game like last week where they're just trying to lose the game. Like they're actively trying to give the game away. So I don't think that's going to work against the Eagles team that is winning in spite of their head coach making bad decisions. The offense is starting to come along. The defense has been great. So I think this is one where the Eagles probably win comfortably, especially because it's really starting to look like Stafford is pressing a little bit. And, that doesn't generally help you win.
Good point. And I do think there's a huge gap about the size of the Grand Canyon between the Detroit Lions and the Philadelphia Eagles, at least currently right now. I know from experience, and we all know it, Bo played the game, that when you score 52 points and you're scoring like 40 at will, those days all of a sudden come to an abrupt end. I don't know who it's going to be, but someone is going to play them, and we're all going to go, oh, my God, they only scored 31. But seriously, if the Detroit Lions were playing the Eagles in let's say the conference championship game in Detroit, as we speak right now, they would be on my power ratings, which are predictive power ratings, by the way, based on the schedule coming up, instead of looking backwards like the college football playoff does. That's another show, I guess. I can't talk about that. That'd be a rant. Anyway, Philadelphia would be a 9-point underdog in Detroit in the NFC conference game. Any thoughts on that, Rudy?
The Eagles, even though they get better as the season goes on, and we've seen this, we've seen it on the Super Bowl run just a few years ago. So we know that they have the propensity of being able to not play catch up, but to take the lead. And they were able to, I believe, break that streak of not scoring first when possessing the ball first in the first quarter. So a lot to kind of hang your hat on. And I don't mean the head coach in the sense of what decision-making processes he's going to put to Jalen Hurts if they're going to be able to get down the field and march consistently. With that being said, I have a problem with consistency. And so when you look at the Rams, yeah, you're right, Bo. When it comes to, third and longs, third and shorts, defensively, they can't really smack you in the mouth, even though they have two rookies on the defensive side of the ball. They're certainly going to try. They're going to get in the backfield, whether or not they can get to Jalen Hurts with that sore ankle behind a very decent and I would say formidable offensive line, even though they don't have Jason Kelce at center, and you have a rookie starter there. There's a lot to like about the Rams and what they're going to do to dial up that kind of pressure to get to the backfield. I think the Rams will score first. If that's a prop bet, then so be it. I'll take that. I think the Rams will score first. I just believe that there's more consistency on the Rams side of the ball because defensively they're getting healthier, they're getting better, they're getting more acclimated, they're playing at home. It certainly says a lot. What that looks like on the road if they were to play like the roles were reversed and they were in Philadelphia, I don't know. But the way that they're playing right now at home, it's going to be hard to beat.
Oh, anything to add on that game?
I mean, they don't really have a home field advantage. Like anytime you're playing at SoFi, it's everyone else's colors in there. Like the Rams don't have a great home field. Chargers don't either, right? There's too much else going on in LA. If you're a 5-5 team, people are going to go do something else. So I would bet that there's going to be a large amount of green in that stadium. So I wouldn't really say that they have a home field advantage so much, but I get what you're saying. I don't think the Rams really have an answer for Saquon though. Like that's going to be one of the biggest things is they haven't been fantastic against the run, and he's in the conversation for having the rushing title this year.
He is, but like I said, they're going to have to dial it up and give them different looks to make them believe it's going to be a pass rush when all they do is back off before the snap and provide that double. If they're going to throw them, if they're going to put Saquon Barkley on the outside, you have to be able to prevent and minimize damage, at least minimize damage, less than 5 yards per carry. But the way Saquon's been playing, and you're right, to your point, he's been playing lights out, be able to carry the ball, hurdle people, especially, when you don't think he's going to do something and he just blows your mind, by doing backward hurdles and all types of Olympic type of, things in the football field. It's going to be hard to try to stop that, but we'll see what the health truly is of this Rams defense by trying to stop a guy by the name of Saquon, who, by the way, was smart enough to leave the New York Football Giants because they are a miserable and failing franchise.
Well, I'll say, Rudy, I have two comments. I think what you're going to see is. Go ahead, Bo. Sorry.
Oh, I got a little bit of a lag. Sorry. I was just going to say the Giants are an absolute dumpster fire, and the way Saquon is running right now is like somebody that's playing Madden for the first time and just mashing every button possible, just all at the same time.
It reminds me of me playing it when I had one.
Yeah, it's good stuff. One thing I think you'll see is they haven't put Barkley out in the slot, and I think that might be a good wrinkle to do. I mean, he's not the best ball catcher there is. He has a running back. He's probably in the bottom third and drop passes. But if they run little slants, he's going to catch 99% of them. If they do those little fades to the sideline, like they did in the one game that didn't work against, I think it was I forget who it was. It was just a bonehead call again by Soriani. But, with that said, you mentioned too, Rudy, that the Eagles start out slow in the year and then they get progressively better. I'm here to tell you that the 76ers, who also have started out slowly, will be at 500 by December 15th. I just wanted to throw that in as a wrinkle to a football show with the Sixers being 2-12 and rumors of Embiid being traded. It's ridiculous, the sentiment in Philadelphia on that team right now. But anyway, I hope the Sixers follow your advice that you noted for the Eagles and that they get their act together and start winning some games because they're kind of like dead last right now. Anyway,
they're not playing team ball. And when you talk about the brotherly shove, someone's going to have to shove someone in that Sixers locker room to get them to do what they need them to do. And I don't mean Joel Embiid. I mean of everybody. It's like, drop and give me 100 apiece, and really kind of put the screws to some of these guys, including Joel, and say, look, you need to get this done. It needs to happen now. And I think that's where Philadelphia can maybe, reach out to the Sixers and say, hey, here's a page, take it out of our playbook, and maybe that will help you win a game.
Yep, I agree 100%. Anyway, let's move on to the bigger game. And I think this is the only game on the card that features two winning record teams. And that means we're going to SoFi Stadium for Monday Night Football. And it's the Baltimore Ravens at 7-4 going against the Los Angeles Chargers at 7-3. Baltimore's offense is ranked third in the NFL in total yards per game at 253 and second in rushing yards per game, 177. That's a pretty darn good offense to say the least. But what's new with this John Harbaugh led team is that their defense is struggling. They are ranked 27th or worse across the board in every single category, 30th in pass defense. It's just not associated with a Baltimore Ravens defense that we know and have enjoyed watching for many, many years. Let's see. Justin Tucker is not the Tucker we have known also. He's actually missing field goals at an alarming rate. Chargers. And this is the battle of the brothers, by the way. And you guys already know that. But Jim Harbaugh, the coach of Michigan last year, is back in the NFL. And, he's up to his same old tricks. He has a team, the Chargers, that really struggled last year, looking like a potential outlier for the Super Bowl. I mean, they really are playing well, and their defense is playing well, and everybody's buying into his new system, which is truly amazing at the NFL level. So even though I didn't like him when he was at Michigan, I've kind of changed my mind about him. I mean, pretty good coach, to be able to coach Michigan to a national championship. And then the next year, what if he does win the Super Bowl? I mean, that would be something that Belichick never did. But anyway, I think the Chargers here are going to win this game. Go ahead, Bo.
Oh, I was just saying, I mean, he was in a Super Bowl before playing against his brother. So, I mean, it's definitely not that he can't get there.
It's a matter
I have a system I'll mention shortly, but I want to turn it over to, let's start with you, Bo, but I am on the Chargers here, and I think they are going to give a big hurt to the Ravens, and all because of that secondary. They're missing some guys in this week that are, I believe, second or third string guys. So, Herbert ought to be licking his chops, and if he doesn't throw for 300, I would be absolutely shocked.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to whether or not the Ravens actually want to run Henry. In their loss this last week, again, they ran him only 16 times. Like, I don't know what it is they have against letting Henry get 20, 25 touches, but when they don't do it, they lose. And, the 2 times they didn't do it and won, it was an overtime win against the Bengals and then a last-second win against the Bengals. So it's a formula that there's enough tape out there. I don't know why they're doing it, but it seems to be a trending pattern for them. So I do like the Chargers here at home. And especially since that Chargers defense is number 1 in points allowed. So they are just kind of under the radar with how good that defense has become. And the offense is really starting to come together. So it's a team that probably isn't getting talked about enough. And since the Ravens have been consistently going out and shooting themselves in the foot, it's hard to take them on the road. I still think they're the better team overall, but I think they collect another loss here.
I'm with you. Rudy, are you going to make it unanimous on this game?
Well, I'm going to start by saying this. When you look at what happened against the Bengals, the Chargers, certainly fell apart in the secondary in the second half of that game, trying not to lose the game. You hear about players that leave the ball at the 1 yard line and not actually score a touchdown, and those are rookie mistakes. And we haven't seen that from anybody, at least within the context of both of these teams. I think the Chargers, certainly can give the Kansas City Chiefs a problem, perhaps, and whether it's be at Giha Stadium or at SoFi for that matter. One of the things that, again, are suspect to me is the secondary for the Chargers, who don't exactly look as if they're going to be that much better. And almost during this potential comeback win that the Bengals faltered over as they lost 34-27, it's certainly a sign of progress for the secondary. But when you allow guys like Burrow, Chase, Higgins to get in on you, at least in the first half, they were kind of minimized with the damage that they were able to perform. The second aspect to that is they just fell apart in the second half. So I think this is more about a first half effort, a second half effort by the Chargers, and more importantly, not only keeping Justin Herbert upright, but to make sure that he continues to have the games that he does. Why? He had 2,186 yards so far this season. His completion ratio is almost at 64%. He's only had one interception, 13 touchdowns, and his QBR is through the roof at 102. So again, keeping him upright, playing team ball on the O-line, get better quarterback play, get it to your wide receivers, your tight ends. And if you don't have a guy by the name of McConkey, well, good luck, especially in the red zone. He was an absolute dynamo in the red zone against Cincinnati. So I'm concerned about the secondary for the Chargers. I think that the Ravens are also having issues in the secondary in regards to what their coverage package looks like. Kyle Hamilton with balls that basically fell out of his hands against the Steelers last week. And more importantly, I just don't believe in the front seven of that defense. I really don't. Matty BK had a pretty decent game for Baltimore and a few other shining stars. But outside of that, I think both of their secondaries are suspect. I think the better offensive line play here is for the Chargers and Justin Herbert. And if that can be the case, well, then that's better for them. Don't forget, the Chargers are winners of the last 5 in a row. 5 games in a row. So that says a lot about the consistency of what Harbaugh brings. And I love watching Harbaugh Bowls. It's so great in the beginning, but now they're trying to out-scheme one another, out-coach one another. And I'm sure Daddy Harbaugh is in there wearing a split jersey, just like Mama Kelsey is in the Super Bowl when the Eagles played the Chiefs. So I think he's going to be kind of torn on this and ultimately may not have much to say in regards to this game and the coaching that he's going to probably not give from an advice standpoint to either son into halftime. Now, whether or not he has access to both sides is another story. But to be honest with you, I think the Chargers end up getting the win. And no, Bo, we're not talking about home field advantage, but I think that if the Chargers win out just because they're in LA and they win out the rest of the season after winning those games in a row and counting another one on Monday night, going to say a lot about who actually has the advantage. And I think right now it's the Chargers.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea that the NFL season covers Thanksgiving and Christmas meals in a family atmosphere, because I can't imagine those two sitting at the same table. To be honest with you, there wouldn't be much Thanksgiving, I guess, so to speak, in a traditional sense of the term. But anyway, let's move on to the last.
You can spoon the mashed potatoes in somebody else's yams. I guess you're all right.
Yeah, I think some things would be thrown, like the pumpkin pie might get thrown pretty hard.
Oh, you can't. That's bad.
That would be viral. I mean, if we could film it, maybe we can ask them to get together. That would be funny. I mean, that would be more funny than Peyton and Eli on Monday nights. Anyway,
probably.
Let's move on to the next game here. We'll go through it real quick, and then we'll get to our best bets. And by the way, we went 3-0 last week. I was worried that we were due to go 0-3. This goes to show worries don't help you with handicapping, and you just ride these things as much as we can. 72.4% against the spread. Over at Wager Talk, I was on a show in the NFL when we hit 67% for the season, so we're even ahead of that. So realistically, are we going to do this again next year at 72%? I would have to say probably not, but are we going to hit 58% or better? I would say highly likely. So that's the 30 years of experience talking, like a father to two sons. But seriously, here we go with the Lions and the Colts. The only thing more bullish in this world than the Lions is Bitcoin. That's going to be challenging 100,000 a day. Everybody and their brother is betting on the Lions this week. To use Alan Greenspan's terms, who was the Federal Reserve Chairman back in 1998 before the bubble, irrational exuberance. So we have 87% of the tickets on the Lions already this week. The line has gone from 2.5 to 7.5. Now, keep in mind, the 2.5 was preseason at the Circa. It's gone up 5. We know from earlier in the show, if it hits 6, it's a red flag. And I actually think it might be a red flag now because everyone in the world is betting them and think the Colts are just going to get annihilated. Kind of like the Ohio State-Indiana game. Everybody is saying that Ohio State is going to blow them out. And does Indiana belong in the top 12 if they lose by 20 or 30 points? I think it's a sneaky pick to take the Hoosiers as a side note in college football, and also as a similar situation where everybody is assuming that Ohio State's going to kill them. Everybody's assuming the Lions are going to beat the Colts. What do you think, Bo, in this game?
I mean, I still like the Lions to win this game. The Colts they're a decent team, but they're not good. And when you compare them side by side to the Lions are better in literally every category. So it would really take the Lions looking past this team to lose. And, anything's possible, but I'm taking the Lions here to continue their role. They're a very disciplined team. They're playing very well, and they don't seem to be overlooking any opponents. They seem to be really taking that mantra of one game at a time. And I'm on the bullish side of it. I like the Lions in this game.
Rudy, are you on the Lions?
It would be dumb for me to take any other team other than the Lions, especially when you're playing at Ford Field, because they're just playing so well. They're playing like a Dan Campbell-led offense should look like. And I said this last year. I said that they're on the rise. They will get to a peak and a point in their season where they're just going to demolish teams that they're designed to beat. It's foolish to believe that they're not going to be able to beat teams that they shouldn't beat, because they do, and they have, and they continue to. Jared Goff is an absolute stud. He's been doing it on a regular basis, game in and game out. Yeah, a few hiccups here and there, but what star quarterback does not have that problem? So overall, I like the Lions. Hands down, they're going to just destroy them. And maybe if they play a rematch on the series very same day, I'll take them twice on Sunday.
This whole game reminds me of a saying that Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is a good friend of mine. We've done financial shows for years now. And one of the Wall Street sayings is, you never catch a falling knife. And to try to bet against the Detroit Lions right now is like trying to catch a falling knife. Because think about it, what happens if you try to catch a falling knife?
Yeah, you stab yourself most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I agree with you guys. I think it might be I'm just going to lay off of it. It's too tempting for me to want to take the dog if Detroit scores first. But if Detroit scores first, it could end up 52 to whatever. I think that line actually might be cheap. Anyway, let's go to the final round of best bets for the show and see if we can't go 3-0, and we'll get your guys out of here. I'm going to make this very easy. Another game that's similar to the Lions. I'm taking the Washington Commanders as the show best bet, minus 10.5. I don't care if it's 17.5, and I'm going against those Cowboys who have shown that they have absolutely no moxie whatsoever to show up and play a game. So I know it's a double-digit favorite with a team that didn't win against a divisional opponent last year, but they are a totally different team this year under Jaden Daniels, and I think they're just going to absolutely hammer them and get a lot of revenge out of their system come Sunday. What's your best bet, Bo?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the Broncos to cover over the Raiders. They have a 6-point line here, and I would bet that they probably end up winning by 10. This Raiders team is falling apart. They don't have anything to play for. At this point, they're really starting to look at next year's draft. And so I don't see them trying to win too much, right? They want to keep their draft pick where it is. So I have the Broncos to really kind of shut the Raiders down and win and cover. So
I like that play a lot. I was debating between that one as my best bet and the Commanders. But Rudy, what is your best bet? I'm thinking it might not be the Steelers, but it might be.
It would be a shocker to say it wouldn't be the Steelers, and here's why. You have TJ Watt on one side of the ball. If there was a prop bet, I'll start with my prop bet first. So my best prop bet would be TJ Watt gets at least 2 sacks and a tackle for loss. And it's not going to even be close. But then overall, as far as Steelers and Browns are concerned, I don't care about the weather. To me, it's insignificant. Steelers have played hands down some of the best football they've played in years. Nobody expected them to be here, and still no love for Pittsburgh on mainstream media, even though I'm on the opposite side of the country. So I'm taking the Steelers here, and the only way I'd play it is up until 5 under. After that, all bets are off. I'm not taking it. I'm not going to even dive into there. So,
well, there again, if it goes to that, then you can bet 70% pre-flop, and if somehow the Browns score first, even if it's a field goal, you're going to get that price at a much better level. So, again, nobody is telling you that you have to bet everything pre-flop, which is what we used to do all the time because there was no live market. So I like that strategy quite a bit with the Steelers. They've shown that they can come from behind and win as well. It's not a big deal if the Browns score first.
Yeah.
Anyway, that'll be it for today. What was that, Rudy?
It doesn't even matter if he makes 6 field goals or not off of Boswell's toe. So
last I checked, it's the higher number wins the game.
Right. That's all that matters.
I know Bo has his show coming up here at 11, so make sure you tune into that one. It'll be on in about 5-6 minutes, so we better let him go. But for Rudy Reyes and Bo and myself, remember to always bet with your head. It's so important. Never over it, and may all the wins be yours.